The night air was cool and heavy with the scent of rain as Maya walked through the empty streets, her fingers gripping the handle of her worn umbrella. Street lights flickered, casting shadows that danced across puddles forming on the cracked pavement. Her footsteps echoed in rhythm with the drizzle, a lonely melody that mirrored the weight in her heart. She had spent another long day at the hospital, surrounded by sterile walls and quiet suffering. As a physical therapist, Maya had seen pain in many forms, the kind that lingered in bones, the kind that lingered in memories, and the kind that no treatment could quite reach. But today had been particularly hard. Her last patient, an elderly woman with trembling hands and hollow eyes, had clutched her fingers and whispered, "Sometimes healing isn't about the body, dear. It's about the soul." The words had stayed with her. Maya wasn't sure whose soul needed healing more, her patient's or her own. When she finally reached the small apartment she called home, she hesitated before unlocking the door. The silence inside would greet her like an old friend, one she never wanted but could not escape. Since her younger brother, Armin, had died 2 years ago, silence had filled every corner of her life. He had been the bright one, the artist, the dreamer, and when he left the world too soon, something inside her had gone dark. That night, as she sat by the window with a cup of tea, she noticed a figure across the street. He was sitting on a bench near the park, drenched despite the rain, a thin blanket clutched around his shoulders. His face was hidden beneath tangled hair, and beside him lay a sketchbook, its pages curling from the moisture. Something in that sight tugged at her heart, the image of someone alone in the rain with art by his side felt too familiar. Without thinking, she put on her raincoat, grabbed an extra thermos of tea, and crossed the street. The man looked up as she approached, his eyes wary but soft, the kind that had seen too much. "Hey," she said gently. "You'll get sick out here. Want some tea?" He hesitated, then nodded slightly. She handed him the thermos, and he took it with trembling hands. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice rough. "Most people just walk past." Maya sat beside him, her umbrella sheltering them both. Maybe most people are in a hurry. Or maybe they just don't know what to say. He gave a faint, almost broken smile. "Yeah. I get that." For a while, they said nothing. The rain fell softly around them, the sound oddly comforting. Then Maya noticed the sketchbook again. "You draw?" He looked at it for a long time before nodding. "Used to. I haven't done much lately." "Why not?" she asked. "Because sometimes," he said, "you lose the reason to create." She understood that more than she could admit. "I used to feel that way too," she whispered. "When I lost someone close, it felt like every color faded." His eyes lifted to hers, curious. "Who did you lose?" "My brother," she said simply. "He was an artist too." Something in her honesty seemed to soften him. He looked down at the sketchbook and said, "I'm sorry. I know what that kind of loss feels like." The rain slowed, and for the first time in a long while, Maya didn't feel the cold. She didn't even know the man's name, yet she felt a strange, quiet connection, two people whose worlds had cracked in similar places. "I'm Daniel," he said finally. "Used to be a mural painter. Until the accident." "What happened?" she asked softly. He exhaled, eyes distant. "A fire at the studio. Lost my hand's strength, nerve damage. The doctor said it might come back, but," he flexed his fingers, and she could see the tremor. "I lost my partner that night too. She didn't make it out." Maya's heart ached. She could almost feel the echo of his pain vibrating between them. "I'm so sorry, Daniel." He shook his head. "You don't have to be. People say time heals, but I think it just teaches you to carry the wound differently." They sat in silence again, the city around them breathing in the quiet after rain. Maya looked at his trembling hand, then at her own. She'd spent years helping people move again, heal again, hope again, yet she'd forgotten how to reach for her own healing. "Can I try something?" she asked gently. He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm a physical therapist. Maybe I can help with your hand. Just a little." He hesitated, then slowly nodded. She shifted closer and reached out, her fingers wrapping around his hand. His skin was cold, tense beneath her touch. "Breathe," she whispered. "Let it go." She began to move his fingers carefully, guiding the motion with patience and warmth. It wasn't just technique, it was presence. The rain had stopped completely now, and the only sound was the faint hum of the city and their breathing, synchronized like the quiet rhythm of a shared heartbeat. Daniel closed his eyes, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "You have warm hands," he murmured. "Maybe they remember what it's like to help someone," she said. He opened his eyes again, and something flickered there, not quite hope, but something close. "You really think it can get better?" "I think healing happens in unexpected ways," Maya replied. "Sometimes it's not about muscles or nerves. Sometimes it starts when someone reminds you that you still matter." He stared at her for a long moment, and then, to her surprise, a tear rolled down his cheek. She didn't wipe it away. She just held his hand until the tremor stilled a little. Over the following weeks, Maya found herself visiting the park often. She'd bring tea, sandwiches, sometimes even her guitar, something she hadn't touched since her brother's passing. Daniel began to draw again, clumsy lines at first, then shapes, then colors. Each meeting became a small act of healing for both of them. One day, he asked if she'd come to see something. She followed him to a wall on the edge of the city, cracked, faded, and forgotten. There, in bold strokes and trembling precision, he was painting again. The mural was unfinished, but its message was already clear: two hands, reaching toward each other, light flowing between their fingertips. "It's called the touch that healed two souls," he said, smiling softly. "I wanted to capture what you gave me." Maya stared at the mural, her throat tightening. "Daniel, it's beautiful." He shrugged modestly. "It's not perfect. My hand still shakes." "Maybe it's the imperfection that makes it real," she said. As she stood there, she realized something profound. In helping him find his strength again, she had unknowingly begun to reclaim her own. The act of touching another life had stirred the warmth that loss had buried deep inside her. That night, as they sat beneath the finished mural, Daniel turned to her and said, "You know, when you first held my hand, I thought it was just therapy. But it felt like something more. Like you reminded my soul it wasn't broken." Maya smiled, eyes glistening. "Maybe because I needed the same reminder." He reached for her hand, steady this time. "Then maybe we healed each other." Months passed, and the mural became a quiet landmark in the neighborhood. People would stop and stare, some taking pictures, others just smiling without knowing why. The story behind it wasn't written anywhere, but its message spoke to everyone who saw it, that sometimes a simple touch, an act of care, can ripple through two lives and mend what words never could. Daniel's hand grew stronger. He started taking on small projects again, teaching art at a community center for kids. Maya volunteered there on weekends, helping children with disabilities learn to express through movement and touch. Together, they built something larger than either of them could have alone, a place where healing wasn't just about the body, but about connection, compassion, and shared humanity. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and painted the world in gold, Daniel approached her with a small wrapped canvas. "I made this for you," he said, shyly handing it over. She unwrapped it to reveal a simple yet powerful image, two figures standing in the rain, one reaching out to the other, their hands glowing where they touched. "I never told you," he said quietly, "but the night we met, I was ready to give up. I'd been sitting there for hours, thinking I had nothing left to live for. Then you showed up. You didn't just offer tea, you offered presence. You reached me when I was invisible." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I was lost too, Daniel. Maybe that's why I saw you." They stood there in silence, the painting between them, the air heavy with gratitude. The sun caught on the edges of the mural behind them, illuminating the painted hands, one steady, one trembling, both reaching. And in that golden light, it felt as though the world itself had paused to breathe. The days that followed were filled with small miracles. Children laughing in the art room. An elderly man who hadn't spoken in weeks humming softly as Maya helped him move his arms. Daniel sketching new murals that carried messages of hope and resilience. One afternoon, as they were cleaning up after a class, Daniel turned to her and said, "You ever think about how strange it is that two broken people can end up fixing each other?" Maya smiled. "Maybe that's how it's supposed to work. Healing isn't a solo act, it's something we give and receive at the same time." He took her hand again, the same one she had once held in the rain. This time, it didn't tremble. "I used to believe my art was about beauty," he said. But now I think it's about truth. About the quiet ways people save each other. Maya nodded, feeling the truth of it in her bones. And maybe kindness is the brush that paints that truth. As the sun set once more behind the mural that had started it all, a soft breeze rustled the leaves above them. The world felt lighter, brighter, not because the pain had vanished, but because they had learned how to hold it together. And though no one watching would know their story, those who passed by often said they could feel something in that place, a warmth, a calm, an invisible connection between souls. Maybe it was just the art. Or maybe it was the touch that healed two souls, still echoing softly through the heart of the city.